I want to welcome now Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator Cotton, thank you for being here. Before we start, thank you for your kindness, your generosity around the recent loss of my dad. I really appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, sure thing,
okay,
Harris.
We'll move to this.
Congratulations to you for the new show as well.
Thank you very much. We'll move to this. So there's obviously a signaling that there is some unraveling of the former President Trump's legacy points through all of these executive orders and actions, 17 yesterday, another 10 today. What is your message to a Biden administration back? And what message do you think they're sending?
Harris, every new president signs some executive orders in their first few days in office, but I think the scale of Joe Biden's executive orders and the impact they have on Americans is pretty stark. The president preached unity from the inaugural stand, and then in the Oval Office, he signed executive orders on immigration that would stop construction of the border wall and give work permits to millions of illegal aliens in our country, putting American workers last, putting foreigners first. He ended the Keystone Pipeline and rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. That's going to cost tens of thousands of jobs of workers who are in the pipeline industry or the energy industry, simply because the Democratic Party disfavors those kinds of jobs. He ended the travel ban on countries like Syria, not because we can all of a sudden vet Syrians coming into this country to make sure they're not a threat or make sure that they don't carry the coronavirus, but because, again, the Democrats wanted to signal their virtue that they're going to reverse everything Donald Trump did, regardless of its impact on the American people. This is a bad way to start the administration.
You know, what you're doing is you're also challenging that idea that you keep in place President Trump's Title 42 to keep people out of the country until we can do all that vetting. And that's specifically per the pandemic. It will be interesting to see if Democrats and the president listen to that. Politico's playbook headline this morning, I don't know if you've seen it, but here it is. Democrats caught flat-footed by total control of Washington. It goes on to say, quote, Democrats are pressing pause on the president's COVID relief package because Biden is, as one person called it, bipartisan curious, i.e., he wants to try to win over Republicans first to the chagrin of many senior Democrats eager to move quickly, end quote. What do you make of all of that, Senator?
Well, I think in particular in responding to the coronavirus and its economic impact, we should try to have bipartisan cooperation. We had that last March with the CARES Act that passed unanimously. We had it in December with the $900 billion relief package we just passed. Now, I tend to think we should allow that relief package to start to work as vaccines get distributed more effectively. We're up to over 900,000 vaccinations on average every day. As the weather starts to get warmer, as winter proceeds, we should see if that package works. Now, if the administration comes to Congress and say, for instance, they need a certain amount of money to help accelerate vaccine distribution through our states and local governments, I'd entertain that. But I don't think that we should move forward with a huge budget that would really just fulfill a lot of longstanding Democratic wishes, not specifically address the needs that the American people have because of this once-in-a-century pandemic.
You know, it did catch my eye that they were surprised, caught flat-footed, if that's at all true, when they knew that they were running two runoffs against Republicans in Georgia. I mean, did they not believe they could possibly win? What does that say going forward? Isn't everybody supposed to prepare to win?
Well, you'd think so, Harris. You know, the Democrats don't let me in on their strategy meetings, but the American people can't afford for us to be flat-footed. You know, if you look at some of these states in particular are having real troubles with their vaccine distribution, in part because they've made it overly complicated and overly centralized. You know, if you look at what we've done in Arkansas, over 230 local pharmacies are now distributing the vaccine, and that's ramping up effectively. Or what's happened in West Virginia, where they really just went on a simple age-based approach and went to places where people are normally going to their day-to-day routines, local pharmacies or high schools and elementary schools where people are used to going. That's what we need to do, is to help people get the vaccine where they go about their normal lives on a simple and objective basis, almost entirely by age. We don't need the kind of overly complicated schemes that some of the states have been developing. Now, fortunately, we're getting ahead of those problems. We are up to about 900,000 vaccinations every single day, which is basically where Joe Biden said that he hoped to get over the next 100 days. Let's hope that we can continue the forward progress we've seen over the last few weeks.
Amen. Yeah, because, I mean, in some states, it looks like cat's yarn. I mean, in New Jersey, they're running out. It's okay, we'll move on. Joe Biden made fighting the coronavirus pandemic, as you've been talking about, Senator, the main staple of his campaign. However, many have noticed that Biden and other high-level officials at his own inauguration were failing to socially distance, Even wearing their masks was at times optional or not correct, the way they were doing it, when they were within 6 feet of others. Look, there was a lot of hugging going on, and these were not necessarily people who shared bubbles. And the word that pops to mind is hypocrisy. Right or wrong?
Well, there may be a little hypocrisy there, Harris, but rather than criticize what you saw at certain instances of the Biden administration, why don't we just ask for some of those Democrats or the liberals in the media who want to condescend to and criticize normal Americans for going about their lives to have a little magnanimity and charity? Obviously, sometimes people's masks fall down, or sometimes they get caught up in the moment. They want to high five or hug on a football field. Everyone's doing the very best they can to get through this pandemic. We need to continue to do so. We need to continue to get vaccines into the arms of Americans. We need to pray for warmer weather around the country so we can begin to get back to normal, rather than try to point out each other's occasional lapses.
I love that. I wrote that down. Magnanimity and charity, something that we all need to remember close to our hearts. You're always wonderful coming up with those phrases. Senator, one last quick question. And I don't deal in like rumor and speculation, but I know you've been asked this question before, so I'll just straightforward ask it. 2024 Republican presidential contenders talking about whether or not you would be among them, Senator Cotton, to run for the presidency. Would you?
Well, Harris, it's kind of you to ask, but right now I'm really focused on the work of the Senate, focused on trying to get Americans back on their feet and back to work because of this pandemic. In terms of politics, look, we've got elections coming up in just about 22 months for control of the Senate and control of the House, and that's where my immediate focus is going to be in politics.
That is a very good point. It really never stops, the next election. Senator Cotton, thank you for your time today. Good to see you.
Thanks, Harris.